Getting more organized in the garden starts with being able to have those tools that you use most often close by and easily accessible, because there's nothing more frustrating than needing that one tool and not being able to find it. So in this video, we're going to talk about simple ways to get more organized in the garden. Where is that harvest knife? Have you ever had a situation like that? Because I sure have. And over the years, I've figured out the tools that I use all the time. And there is nothing more frustrating than having to break your gardening momentum to go locate those. So I've also developed a way to make sure that those tools that I always want to have close by are right where I need them. So it stands to reason the first step in getting more organized in the garden is to identify what your most used tools are and then coming up with a way to keep them conveniently standing by whenever you need them. And that starts with a potting bench or two. Now mine are 6 feet long and 30 inches wide, but you need something that's big enough so that you can spread out. I mean, the seed trays, the tools, the plants, all of that stuff, you need something functional, and for me, that's one of the best places to begin. Once you decide on where to store those go-to tools, what do you put them into? Well, I have two criteria for that, and the first is that it's large enough, like this extra large mailbox here for $36. I love it, and the other criteria is that you want it to shed water. Certainly that's for obvious reasons. And so another option that I really love is a big storage tub like this. Now the downside is this is going to hold water in the lid, but it's not going to go into the tub, and that's the main thing, so you just have to deal with that. But between the size of this tub and this big mailbox here, it's plenty of room for everything that I need to access all the time. So let's talk about some of those tools you're likely to use the most that you want to have close by. So let me show you what I'm storing in my mailbox. First of all, my phone. Now my phone doesn't live here all the time, but it's nice to have a safe place to keep it if it starts to get rainy or you're getting really dirty. Just park your phone in your mailbox. But absolutely, I use my pruners and my soil knife all the time. So it's nice to know that they're right where I need them. The other thing that I use is my precision snips. So all three of these get used interchangeably so frequently. They're on my hip when I'm not storing them in here, so it's nice to know that I can get to them quickly. Pair of gloves. You got to have at least one pair of gloves standing by at all times. I have several, so those are nice to store in there too. That's it for the main tools. Now, beyond my go-to tools that live in here, there are other things also, so let's talk about those. And I call these accessories, but they are so important and I use them all the time, so I'm going to share with you what these are. First of all, it's Velcro tape, and I use strips of this all the time. For example, to support the tomato vines, or maybe it's a pea growing up the trellis, or just to give some support to other plants. There's a million and one uses for these, and the best part is these last forever. So if you buy a roll of this for a few bucks, cut it up into small pieces, this will last a really long time, but you will be going for this a lot, so keep it close by. Something else that I use a lot is surveyor's tape, and this helps me identify projects that I need to get to that I may not have time to do as I discover them. So rather than stopping one job to get to the other job, I just reach for this tape, I tie it off near that project, I'll remember what it is, but by seeing this at that site, I know I need to come back and take care of it. And then there's one more accessory that I also use a lot, and that is marking tags for either when I sow seeds or seedlings into the ground, or when I'm potting up a transplant or a cutting. Unless you mark it, you don't know what it is. So as you can see, I have probably 1,000 or 2 tags right here, and by the end of a season I'll use them all. But the other important part is a marking pen that's UV resistant, because otherwise it will fade, and by the end of the season you may not be able to read what you wrote. So get a quality UV pen and keep it with your tags. One other grouping here, and it relates to safety. So of course, when you're working in the sun, you need to protect yourself from that. So just have some sunscreen handy so you're not having to stop what you're doing to go back inside and find the sunscreen. And so related to that, you want sunglasses and of course a hat, and then safety glasses. You never know when you're going to need these, but it's better to have them and not need them than need them and not have them. And then the last thing I keep in the mailbox is a basic first aid kit. Now this is whatever you deem to be important. For me, I have some bug repellent, some peroxide, some cotton, some Band-Aids, some antibacterial cream, you know, the basics. But whatever you think is important, have it here so you don't have to stop and go looking for it when you really need it. So that's very handy. So that's it for the mailbox, but I haven't shown you what's in the big tub. So let me go ahead and break that out. Okay, so you know those plant tags I was talking about? Well, you also want to keep handy some small pots. These are what I use for lots of cuttings, and you can't have too many of these standing by. And if you want something smaller, have an assortment, different sizes. But also have some really good potting soil standing by too, because you don't want to go looking for this when you need it. And so just having a small bag around, this is all you really need, and that comes in super handy. Then I have a watering can. Now, most of my watering is done with drip irrigation and soaker hoses, but when I'm mixing fertilizer, and a lot of it is liquid based, I'll need a watering can to disperse it. And so I'll also have my fertilizer here. So this is handy for that. And along with that, you're going to need some various measuring spoons of different sizes. So that's why these are here. And let me tell you, it's really nice to have an assortment close at hand. And then I have some granular fertilizer, because a lot of times I'm coming in and side dressing or mending beds as I'm planting something new. So having some granular fertilizer, or whatever your fertilizer of choice is, close by is really handy as well. So that's the essence of what's in the tub. One more thing I forgot to mention, a soil thermometer. It's good to know what the soil temperature is from time to time. Not always, but right when you're sowing seeds, and there are times of the year that you want this. And so having it close to the garden bed is really nice. So that lives here too. So that's the extent of what's in the mailbox and what's in the tub. But there's one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and it is simply this. For all of those tools that you use that don't live in the garden, such as your rakes and your shovels and those long-handled tools, well, have one place around your landscape where they live too, rather than being scattered throughout, so that you know when you need that particular tool, you're going to one place and it's going to be there. That will make a big difference too. So I hope that all of this information was useful to you, adapt it as you need to, but if you do, you're going to make your gardening life a lot easier and much more organized.